Hi everybody and welcome back to my modeling channel. So today we're gonna do a Tu-134 from AZmodel on scale 144. So let's open the box and see what we have inside. So the kit is quite basic and composed of only one sprue. So we have a very fine engravement, which is a good sign, and that's going to allow us to be able to do, there will be no rescribing tools to be used. So we're going to basically have, the fuselage is composed in two halves, so are the wings and the tail. The engines are also in two parts. We have the undercarriage for both sides, and we have a different nose depending on what version we want to build. That's about it for the kit. As you can see, it's pretty basic, but I'm sure with a little bit of time and patience we can get a pretty decent result on that Tu-134. So we're gonna move now toward another part. We have a small bags, and here, as you can see, we have some photo etch part, and those are for some antennas that we have on the fuselage over here, and you also have the wings, the fence on the wings that you can replicate. So that's a very positive things for that kit, as normally those are in plastic and they are pretty big. So instruction sheet now is pretty simple, as you can see. Of course I will add, as you know me, I will add some modeling paste on the nose to avoid having the plane sitting on its tail. But as you see, it's an A4 format and very basic. You have a kit descriptions, and then you have a basic view of the kit and the paint required for that kit. So the kit comes with the decal sheet. We have two options: the old Interflug livery, or the Czechoslovak Airlines OK Jet. So that's the two options we have, and the decals basically are going from the decal instructions is coming from the back of the kit, the back of the box. But everything is well detailed, and there is no reason why we couldn't get a pretty decent model on that airplane. So for this aircraft, I decided to use a different company. I'm using BS Decal. I used those decals earlier on some Boot Airways. It's a manufacturer located in Ukraine. I ordered them before the war. I don't know if they are still open. I wish them all the success they deserve. The decals are pretty nice, I have to say. I didn't have any issue with them on the previous ones. On the previous model I did. So I'm gonna make Atyrau Airways, which is an airline from Uzbekistan, was located in Atyrau, as you can imagine. I saw those aircraft, that Tupolev, I saw it back in the late 90s when they were operating to Istanbul. So I wanted to have a nice memory of that aircraft that I used to see coming up. And that's going to be the livery we're going to make for this kit. So now enough of talking, and let's start building. We're going to start this build by preparing all the parts, and I have to say that as the mold was not very good, it was a little bit time consuming. It took a little bit more time than expected. I also realized that the wings and the tail were thicker than they should normally be, so I had to use the same method that I'm using on the vacuum model. So what I did, basically I used some wet sandpaper, and I sanded down until I had the proper thickness. But still it was, toward the end I realized that it was still a little bit too thick, and I had to use some putty later on. But now what we are going to do, we're gonna glue the parts together, of course, and then we are going to work as well on the fuselage. So to avoid having the plane sitting on its tail, I always add a little bit of weight on the nose, and in this case I'm using modeling paste. Kids Play-Doh has been working very well for years since I started doing modeling. So as I had also some issues with getting all the parts together, I had to do some to use some clamp. Of course, after that there was quite a few gaps, so I used this time the white Tamiya putty, and I was trying to avoid the contrast later on when I'm doing the paint. But I realized that it was very useful. But on the other hand, when I had to do a white coat, then it was a little bit difficult to see if the paint really adhered to the surface. But we will see that a little bit later on. So now I'm building the engines, and as there was no mark on those engines, I had to reopen them to adjust the fan disc a little bit better. So when this all dried, of course, it's time to sand down all the extra putty, and of course, as you know, it's quite a time-consuming part, especially on my models. But at least the results are normally pretty good after that. We are now going to glue one wing on the fuselage, and I have to say that on this model most of the Tupolev have a negative dihedra, so it's always take a little bit of time to make sure that you have the proper dihedra. So I did one wing at a time, then I add the fin or the vertical stabilizer, and then I add the last wing. So what I did to keep a proper dihedra as well is I used some toothpick, and as you can see, and that was the perfect height basically to keep that negative dihedra. After that, it's time to fill the gaps on those engines, as they were not really the best quality engines that I could get. And then we are going to fill up all the gaps once again between the wings and the fuselage, and between the vertical stabilizer and the fuselage as well. So while this will be drying, we are going to sand down and remove the extra putty that we had on our engines. So after removing all the extra putty and sanding down that mold, we're gonna add now our horizontal stabilizer. So there is a little bit of a preparation on the part, of course, as the leading edge are a little bit rough, and it was time to get them at a proper shape. And then, of course, to get them on the model itself. Now that the model is almost complete, now we're gonna add our photo edge part, and that's for the wing fence and the antenna. And once I had them, I cut them, I had some a little bit extra metallic parts on the edge, so I had to sand them down with the file. So now we are going to put those antenna on the top of the fuselage, and then we are going to put those fences basically on the wings. It's now time for the paint shop. So what we're going to do now, we're going to put an overhaul gray on the wings and the horizontal stabilizer. It's a mix of white color and light gray color from Tamiya that I'm using. And then we are going to paint the inside of the wheels with a dark gray basically. For the leading edge this time I use some enamel paint from Umbral, and as I had an issue with those wing fences, I decided to paint them directly with the paintbrush. Then I put some mask, and it's now time for the white coat of paint on that Tu-134. So now I'm gonna sand down the extra plastic that I have on those wheels to get them at the proper shape, and then we're gonna paint the tire. For this I will use matte black from Tamiya and using a regular paintbrush. So with a little bit of time we always can, and a little bit of training, we can get a pretty decent result on those wheels. You don't need any mask or anything else. So that went pretty easily and pretty quickly, and then we're going to be able to move forward on this build. So now we're going to fix the undercarriage on the aircraft itself, and while I was doing this for the main landing gear I realized that I had some issue. The wheel well were not deep enough and the mold was not correct, so I had to reshape everything, and for this I use some sharp knives or some cutter, and then I had to also do some adjustments on the landing gear cover, and that took a little bit of time, as you can see, but nothing too major, too difficult that we couldn't handle. And after this, once we could put the gear on the plane, it was time to put the engine anti-ice, and for this I used the same Umbral enamel paint. Then I used some Tamiya red color for the nav lights, I mean the beacon, and of course the end, basically the tip of the wingtip and the tip of the horizontal stabilizer. After that I started the decaling process. I have to say that those BS decals are very easy to use. There was a little bit of trimming, but they work very well on the clear surface, so that's something to keep in mind if you are using some dark colors on your fuselage. Then you will have the problem with transparency. So that's something to consider in the future if you do those type of model. But everything, the overall process went very well. Sometimes you have to use a little bit of some decal solution to a softener solution, and that helped a lot to remove all the bubbles. But the overhaul went very smoothly, I have to say. The decal adhere very well to the surface. They are very thin and they are not too fragile. So I was really happy about the end result. Now I'm finishing the model, and by putting the emergency exit doors on those windows. So this is the end result of this Tu-134A from Atyrau Airlines. I hope you enjoyed that build with me. If you did so, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you soon for another build. Thank you for watching.